Hey everybody, my name is Jared Lane. I'm a graduate from the Ardios campus of Littleton, Colorado, and I'm joined with Jessica Kennedy, who's a graduate from the Ardios of Sugar Hill
Yeah.
in Georgia. And we're just going to be talking about the things that we loved about Ardios, what we learned about Ardios, and just like the experiences that we had and how it's affected us in life after Ardios and after high school. So, Jessica, thanks for being here.
No problem. My pleasure.
That's great. So, what was it like being part of the campus at Sugar Hill?
It was really wonderful. I joined right during the transition of locations. And that was a really unique take because we were kind of building RDOs from the ground up, both locationally and community wise. So that was really interesting. It was kind of nice at the same time because everyone was getting used to a new location, so we were also getting used to new people, and I never felt disjunctive. I never felt like this awkward, like, oh, who are all of these people? Because we were all new to this. But yeah, it was really wonderful.
When you were talking about how there wasn't a disjunct feeling, it just made me think
Hmm.
about when I think back of, the in particular like the 4 years of high school in Ardios.
Yeah.
A lot of times I have a hard time like putting people in years that they joined Ardios
Hmm.
because it just becomes of like, well, they were always there, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
oh no, they
Yeah.
came in your junior year, and you're like, what in the world? It's just like they come, they
Yeah.
are. It's like an amoeba is an Ardios conservatory. This new person comes, and it just surrounds the person, and they're a part of it,
Yeah.
and it's like they
Hmm.
never weren't there according to
Exactly.
the rest of the group, which is
Yeah,
weird.
that's the really cool thing about Ardios is that because you're all on one location, you get to know everyone from all the years, like even, you know, little kids to high schoolers, like and it never feels like, oh, these are the sophomores and these are the juniors and there are the seniors, and I think that's just really cool is because everyone's kind of together. You get to know everyone, which is neat. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember at Littleton we did a movie night one night, and all these siblings came to the movie night that weren't like a part of Ardios, but the entire family came, whether or not they were in
Yeah.
Ardios or not. And it's like when like a little kid, like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old comes, that's the sibling of someone in Ardios. That little toddler like becomes like the adopted sibling
Yeah.
um, of everyone, which I think is great.
Yeah, we would have family days. Like I remember there was one where it was like medieval times, and we had a bunch of people like bring their families onto campus, and it never felt like it was them and their families. It was just Ardios, like there wasn't this awkward feeling of like, oh, there are those random children running around. It's like, oh, there are those Ardios students, I guess, running
Yeah.
everywhere. So yeah, it's just really cool. Like it is like the adoptive feeling. They bring people in and you're like one of us. It's just really cool.
It is really awesome.
Mhm.
What when you were in Ardios in the high school, what did you choose a major? Did you choose a
Yeah,
track?
yeah, I was visual arts. I think that's what it was called. But like, yeah, I was mostly art, which didn't surprise many people considering my father was the art teacher for the high schoolers.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, like I graduated with that. Um, and it was just really cool because I was much more of the visual arts, on like the painting and constructing side. So I would help a lot with like the theater groups for the sets and stuff. But like yeah, like I think it was just really cool, how like we could incorporate that side of art into even theater, which makes a lot of sense because if you know theater, you kind of need set design.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, yeah, studio arts, man, and that's what I'm doing now at college. I'm a
that's
studio art
great.
junior, so continued.
That's awesome. That's really cool. What you're
Yeah.
saying, like with like how a lot of times with the shows you have crossing of all the different majors, because like I was
Yeah.
a music major at
Mhm.
Littleton, but I knew all the art majors and all the theater majors because we all just loved the shows so much.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
really knew
You need
everyone.
a whole army of all different kinds of people to make a production. And like I interned with the costume department too. So like I was helping with costumes, I was helping with painting sets, I was helping with building sets, and then sometimes I was even in the production, which was something I never could have imagined before Artios was being in a theater production.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was just really cool. And then even sorry, that was a bell. even with even with the things we go to as Artios, like CETA and Bob Jones and like that kind of stuff, just like bringing that in. You don't have just theater majors, you also have art majors and like music majors, and it's just really cool. Like it's all together. I mean, art, heart, smart is the motto, so it makes
That's
sense.
true. That's
Yeah.
really true. When you did, what got you to do your first theater show? Because you're saying that like you never thought you'd do it in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so my first year, I've been told this by my mother. But my first year, I'm like insanely stage fright. I hate public speaking and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So like when I wanted to be stage crew, uh, Ben Toller, he was saying that you had to audition in order to even be stage crew. Well, I was like, well, nope, I'm not doing stage crew. And my mother talked with Ben, and in her words, she said you'd have a really hard like worker if you just take her on. And so that was kind of like my inside to the drama department.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to do it again the next year. And Ben Toller basically said, like, well, you have to audition. And I was like, oh, well, dang it. So I ended up doing it. And it terrified me so badly. Like, I have this great memory of finishing my first audition and looking down at my Fitbit, and my heart rate was just a dash. And I'm like, well, my heart has stopped. It's just dead now. But like, yeah, it was great. And because I had auditioned, I was able to have a role anyway. So I was stage crew and I was also doing something. So it felt really fun. And then I auditioned the next year after that. Um, so yeah, it was just kind of like wanting to do the painting side of things, but being kind of pushed into doing more. And it worked out really well. I'm so glad that happened because the drama department really made Artios quite fun.
Yeah.
You probably know. Yeah.
That's definitely true. So many things happen within the drama department, and like a lot of times I call it like the fiery trials of a tech week and
Yes.
all that stuff. And you just find yourself in so many different situations you never think you would be in, when
Yeah.
doing a show that just make you grow and kind of learn more about yourself in a way as you
Yeah.
just like
My
go.
my first year of Artios, when I started doing crew, I was stage manager. And I was like, I have no idea how to do any of this. But it was a great position I was put into because I got to see things from the other side.
Mhm.
And that really helped. But it also got me to know like the cast in another way. Because when you're working in a production with people, knowing this now looking back, when you're working in a production with people, it's kind of like a more family dynamic, if you know what I mean. But working
Mhm.
as like a stage crew, it's like, okay, now I have to take a step back and work on the functions of how everything is working together. And that was really interesting. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time at Artios with the drama club. That was pretty cool. And
Yeah,
like it's just so funny because I used to tell myself that I would never like do any of that. And I ended up doing it for 3 years. So
that's
yeah.
right.
Hmm.
That's right. I think doing a lot of that, helps. at least it helped me um, take the steps to try things I never thought I wanted to try that ended up being some of like the biggest passions in my life.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of like discoveries happens in the productions and in audios because there's just so many different things to try. Like, I mean, there's anything from a high schooler helping with middle school study hall to being an assistant for one of the art teachers to stage directors and all that stuff. And you
Yeah.
just try out all these different things. And at one point, sometimes you're like, oh, wow, I actually really like that. Maybe
Yeah.
let's see what happens if we keep doing it.
It's like mile markers, like
Yeah.
getting to where you really want to be and finding out like what fits as you're going. And I think
Hmm.
that's just really cool. Like, um, a good example is that I started taking oh gosh, what was it called? It was not set design, but it was like technical, like lighting and set design and that kind of stuff. I took a class on that, and I was able to apply that to CETA,
Yeah.
which is, I think it's, but isn't it Christianity in the Arts or something like that? What was that called?
I think
CETA.
that's what it's called.
Yeah. Um, but I took that to CETA, and I ended up um, like really figuring things out at CETA, and it was really cool because those events I had always seen as just like, well, that's for like theater and singing people. And then CETA started doing set design, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Okay. So I was able to attend and go there. And now, like, I'm taking this semester actually, I'm taking an appreciation of theater and film with Mr. Zadowitz,
Yeah.
and that has just been so much fun because like I know the technical words, and I know like the slang of theater and some film even, which has just been really cool. And like it's not necessarily that I want to go into theater or film, but like I now have that knowledge so that I can go into these college classes and I'm like, oh, I already know this terminology. And I think that's just really cool. And that's something that I wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't gotten involved in drama club. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I keep
Mhm.
thinking back to what a rec theory class would have been at Bob Jones if it wasn't for having a couple of theory classes at Artios because of like
Yeah.
how long it took me to grasp like the very basic concepts of music theory. And then
Hmm.
college classes just go so fast and move so quickly over material. I was thinking, man, if I hadn't had that, I don't
Yeah.
really know. So I'm so thankful for those courses.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think, like, especially with doctrines, and I'm taking apologetics and worldview right now. And I'm just like, man, if I hadn't sat into these classes at Artios, like worldview and even some of the more just even discussions with teachers, to be honest, in Artios, like I wouldn't have had a firmer grasp of this concept, which I think was really beneficial, was to just know my stance on some things until I could build up from that. And that's been huge, like especially going through apologetics and worldview and already understanding what a worldview really is and
Hmm.
what my worldview is. It has been really helpful. But yeah, that's something that RDS has definitely instilled. Is just like the technical benefits of like terminology and stuff, but also just like the benefits of just like having that um, ground and understanding in a spiritual way. It's like
Hmm.
spiritual benefits as well, which is just really cool. Like moving into that.
Yeah, that's such
Mhm.
a good point about of what it's like to be an artist because it's like your parents have been telling you one thing for a really long time and you don't really get it, and then another person tells you the same thing, and then another person tells you the same thing, and then you're like, oh wow, that's so true. And then you go to your parents and you're like, oh, like check this out. I just like heard this person talking, and isn't it so cool? And they're just like, we've been telling you this for 10 years. And
Yeah.
like at Ardios, you get that a lot
Mhm.
of um, all these different teachers and students from all different walks of life and perspectives are there to help you grow in Christ. And so you're hearing, things about Christ and what he's done for you and how we live. from all these different perspectives and all these different people, and it really starts taking hold and solidifying in a way of like when you're saying like when you go to college, you go and you feel like you're grounded and not
Hmm.
like because you've already moved to a new place. Most of
Yeah.
your friends didn't go with you, and you're in a new room eating new food. So everything else kind of went away, but the
Hmm.
foundation of all those different people pouring into you
Yep.
really helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, man, yeah, it sure does.
It really
And
does.
just being able to, so now even in the whole idea of being told something over and over and over and over again, and then having it explained to you in a way that you're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Or even like what you've been taught, now you're living it. And so you're applying it to something and you're like, oh, this is that thing that Artios or something I had heard of in high school. Like, that makes sense now. This is why
Yeah,
we learned it. So
yeah,
yeah.
that's totally true. What were some of your favorite classes when you were there?
My favorite classes? Oh, that's hard. Um, I mean, obviously the art class is like the best art class ever, especially the Sugar Hill campus art class, high school. Yep. I mean, that one was probably my favorite, to be honest, just because I am an artist and I'm surrounded by artists for most of my life, all of my life. So that's just been, yeah, that's a really good memory. But I also really enjoyed Miss Brandy's costuming class. Like she had, like we had an internship and then she started teaching it,
Hmm.
and that just was so much fun. Just because it was really hectic when the plays needed to be like costumed and things. But
Hmm.
like when we were able to just sit down and she would like bestow us her sewing wisdom, I think that was just really cool. Um, but yeah, I mean, I I would have to say it's hard to like pick a certain class because they all like build off of each other,
Hmm.
which is just really cool. But yeah, I think art is probably my favorite if I had to
Yeah,
pick, to be honest.
yeah. I would definitely have to say like choir or music theory
Yeah.
was definitely my favorite. But like
Mhm.
even I feel like I say this all the time, but like one of my favorite classes of all time was biology, actually. Like
Ah.
I really think that like if I think back to the classes that I had the most fun in, it
Mhm.
might have been biology. Doesn't mean I like it more than another subject, but like
I
I
can
think
get that though.
right, it was like
Yeah.
I mean Mrs. Dixon was just the best. And like um I think the entire class was filled with theater majors and then me as a music major. And this was the first year of prep at Littleton. So none
Mhm.
of us have had like a big theory class where like there's the accountability of a teacher, um, which just feels it's a whole lot different than your mom or your dad saying we need to go at this pace. you
Yeah.
know she has these deadlines and she works with you if something's going on, but you have this like this external accountability that's really good. And she just kept, man, I remember like the first week of class, I think she picked up on, she was like, oh man, we got some work to do with this bunch. And then I remember she gave us the assignment, so I was like, uh-oh, like I can't do this. Like this is too much. Like what is she wanting and all this stuff. I remember talking to my mom about it and just be like, I don't know what to do. But it's like all of us, the entire class, like rose to the occasion. And it's like we got to the bar she raised, and then she raises it more. And because we
Yeah.
had this person like calling us to this higher standard, we're like, okay, we can get there. And then we get there and she calls us to a higher standard. And just like the whole
Mhm.
semester, she's calling us to like this higher and higher standard. And we get there. And the places and a grasp of biology, I don't think any of us thought that we could ever have, I think, which was really cool.
Yeah, I think that's something that is so cool about what Artios does is that I feel like, which is drastically different from other high schools, is that you're constantly raising the bar, like, and raising that standard, where you're not just like, you know, this is what you need to accomplish, and then that will sail you on your way. Like, congratulations, there is that one line. And I feel like most of the teachers, because you get to know them so well, is that like they're constantly pushing you to be better. And
Hmm.
that's just so cool because like when you get to college, you're gonna need that.
Yeah.
Because like your teachers will expect from you the best, like that you can possibly do. And I think that that's just really cool. Is that Artios is the same way. It's constantly pushing you to like go outside of the box, like really expand, and that will be able to be applied to your life forever. And
Yeah.
that's just really cool. Now that I'm thinking of it, I have to mention another class because
Yeah.
she would be upset. Is my mother teaches graphic design
That's awesome.
at the Sugar Hill campus as well, and that was an amazing class.
Yeah.
Um, Mostly because not many people know all the facets that go into graphic design and how widely used it is. Like if there is one art form that is just sweeping the nation right now, it's graphic design.
Yeah.
And it's basically used in everything. And she just did a really great job because she works as a graphic designer. Like she literally would drive to Artios, have her class, and then drive to work and be a graphic designer for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And she was just so business mindset, where she would have all of your projects would apply to something. Like if
Mm.
you ever wanted to do something, you would be able to go like, oh yeah, I learned that. And even now, me in at Bob Jones University, and I'm not a graphic designer, or going into graphic design, I'm still able to apply those things.
Hmm.
That is super cool. Like even just the concepts of like, oh yeah, okay, this doesn't necessarily need to be used here, but it can be used later. Not a big deal. Like that was super cool. So yeah, shout out to my parents.
Yeah.
Uh,
But that's like so true how the things we learn in these classes at Artios, and like the way they're taught and structured makes it so that um, we're able to see how everything starts connecting and relating to everything, and how we can use one subject or one thing in worldview to inform this one thing in music, and this one thing in music
yeah.
to inform what we do in theater, and all this stuff, and how it
Mhm.
works out like that. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing is just by itself. Like it applies to every other class that you'll ever take. And like what you were saying about biology, about like pushing yourself, even just that concept, that can be put into anything. And
Yeah.
I think that's just really cool, is that a lot of the teachers understand that too. Like the artist teachers, they have a really good grasp of what exactly they're doing.
Hmm.
And I just respect that a lot.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think another thing I really respected about the teachers at Artios was that, like, we've been talking a lot about how they're always pushing you because they know you can do better. But
Hmm.
I don't ever remember a time where I felt like if I didn't make it to what they wanted,
Yeah,
that I was either in trouble, or like any less of a student in their eyes, or really any less
absolutely.
loved in their eyes, because they really do love their students.
Yeah, like that's just so cool. That's the other side of the coin. The whole like pushing you, and then you never feel pressured to be like, you never feel like you're lesser, like what you were saying, a lesser student if you can't reach that. Like I think they're constantly pushing you, but they're also trying to teach you to push yourself,
Yeah.
like as you go. And I think that's just really cool. And that comes from the love that they have for you. Like, I don't think there's a single teacher at Artios that wouldn't like stop you on the side of the street if they ever saw you and talk with you. Like, because they genuinely want to know how you're doing. And I
Yeah.
think that's just really cool. Like, your mom would stop me once in a while, like, whenever I saw her on campus. And that
Yeah.
was just so nice because I met her like once, and it was here during a high school festival. And then since then, like every time I see her, she's like, "Oh yeah, I know you," and I'm like, "That's so nice." You're not even on my campus half the time, so it's just really cool, like because they have that love for you. They want to see where you're going, and they don't just like drop you once you've graduated. I think this is a really good example, like just having alumni talk. It is
Yeah,
just really cool. But yeah, they love us so much.
they really do. And like what you just said about like they don't once you graduate, that's it,
Hmm.
kind of a deal. That's really not like I remember, especially in the like first 2 years of undergrad, I was always talking to Mrs. Fine or
Hmm.
Mrs. Potwin a lot of teachers I was always going back to and being like, oh, this is or even like if just something went really well, it was like
Hmm.
we had that relationship
Yeah,
where you just want to tell them and they want to know, even if it's
exactly.
been 2 years since you graduated.
Hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What were now that you've been graduated out of Artios for 3 years, almost 3 years,
Mhm. Almost.
almost, what would you say is something that one of the main things that stuck with you?
One of the main things that stuck with me from Ardios. That is so hard. It's like picking your favorite child. Um, I would have to say to put God in everything you do. I think that's just something, and that's something that I've been reminded to while I'm here as well, but something that I think I first heard from Ardios, at least really loudly from Ardios, is that like in every facet of your life, everything you touch, your worldview is going to touch. So you have to be that representation. And I think that's just really cool, like how I could be writing a paper or I could be making a piece of art or I mean I could even be talking with someone and we're still that like we are showing them that side of us. We have to be extremely um I guess a good way of putting it is just like my writing teacher mentioned that just like our our side of things, our Christianity, our worldview is the like lifeblood of everything that we make. And
Hmm.
as an artist, that's a big deal to me. Is that like even if I'm not necessarily painting something that's like I've painted the 7 days of, or the 6 days of creation, it's like yeah, I'm painting flowers, but like I'm putting myself into this, and with that goes my worldview. And I think with Ardios, like especially since most of the classes you pray at the beginning of every class, um, and like I like oh my gosh, before we would go on for plays, we would just have a big moment where we'd pray all together, and like I think that was just really cool because we were giving it up to God, and that is something that especially here at college 3 years in is that I absolutely know that I have to rely on that and that I have to give up you know what I want to do to God, so through that I'm putting him in my work, and I think that's just really cool.
That's really cool of how these like one of the things that's stuck with me, and it
Hmm.
wasn't even like through a course or anything like that. It was
Yeah.
because my voice teacher saw a teachable moment and
Hmm.
stopped the lesson because she knew that um me understanding that in any talents that we have, whether it's math, whether it's a talent for numbers or whether it's a talent for visual art or music or accounting, whatever it is that we've been given those, so that we can give them to others. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she just like stopped the entire lesson to really teach me that because I think she and see, and this is just amazing that she recognized this because like she knew me so well that the reason why I was so up, like the reason why I was so like physically tight as I sang wasn't because of bad technique, but it was just because I was thinking about singing in a way that just made me way too nervous. And
Hmm.
she realized that it was because I wasn't thinking of singing like that,
Yeah.
right? And then so she kind of stopped the lesson to tell me that, and it was like, and that's just carried over into
Hmm.
everything, honestly. And it's a lot like what you were saying, and that's part of if God is in everything that we do, and one of the ways that we um, give Him our all is by
Hmm.
giving what He's given us to others, whether that's
Yeah.
visual art, music, or the ability to do taxes really easily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. And I think it's cool that both of our um, key points that we made are not from a specific class. Like it just came from like the lifeblood of Artios.
Hmm.
And that's just really cool. I think that just the community is just fostering that ideology, and that's just really neat.
That's awesome. Awesome.
Hmm.
Have you have you kept in touch with other people in your graduating class since you graduated?
I have to a certain degree. It's harder during the semester just
Yeah.
because like everything is happening. And like I said earlier, like when I'm at college, the outside world just goes away. And but when I'm home, then yeah, especially I got to go see a couple productions. I think 2 years ago. It was before COVID. And that was just so much fun because I got to reconnect with a lot of people who also came back home and were going to these Artios productions. And that's been really neat. I've also got to see a couple of them at weddings and at just gatherings, baby showers, like that kind of stuff, and that's been really fun. But yeah, I think what's really cool is that when I run into them or like when we get together, it never feels like there's been 2 or like a year and a half between us.
Yeah.
It's just so nice. And you'll just randomly get texts from other graduates, and you'll just be like, "Oh yeah, them," and you'll just respond like nothing has happened, and I think that's just really cool. I've really missed having because of COVID, we weren't able to have high school festival here,
Hmm.
and that was just so sad because I was like, oh, I won't be able to see Artios. But like it's just so cool when you do get to see everyone, even the teachers. Like earlier we were talking about how they don't really forget you.
Hmm.
It's just really cool when you see them and you're able to talk with them again and you're like, it's just like no time has passed. That's just really neat.
Yeah, I think that's probably the thing about RDS I'm most thankful for at the
Hmm.
present. This entire year, really, of even though I don't think anyone from Littleton of my year at least went to Bob Jones.
Yeah.
Um, and so, we all went to different colleges and then now we're all graduated. But even throughout college, we stayed in touch, even if it was just seeing each other on summer break and winter break.
Hmm.
It was still, like you said, like didn't feel like a semester had
Yeah.
walked by. And now that, we're graduated, it's um I feel like at Ardios, like true like lifelong friendships are made. And not just
Yeah.
like people you get along with, but
Hmm.
like people who are truly deep friends, like to the point of almost like um Jonathan and David, you know, like to that point where it's just such good friends.
Yeah. It's like extended family.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're just like, oh yeah, here are my crazy brothers, or sisters, and
that's right.
it's just great to seeing them all again, and to see like where they are at the moment. I think it's really interesting how several of the people who were in my year like have gone different directions than you thought they were going, and you're like, oh, that just makes so much sense, like where you were working towards, now you're there, and I think that's just really fun. And like the how life is changing for each of us very differently, and yet we can all like still relate to each other in ways. It's just cool, and I think
Yeah.
that's just because you create those bonds with Ardios. I still have a group chat that I think they still use. I've had to silence it since I graduated because it would just go off all of the time. But it's just called The Family, and I love it because like when I look at it and I read The Family, I know who it is. I know it's just a bunch of crazy Artios people, teachers included, and I
Yeah,
think that's just great.
that's crazy. So like
Yeah.
I'm from Sugar Hill and there's a group chat called The Family, and
Hmm.
Littleton, we had a group chat called The Fam. And so,
Yes.
you know, two separate campuses, we still have that going on, and
Yeah.
same, there's teachers in it and stuff, and
Mhm.
The group chats are hysterical. But like
Yeah.
that's just such a good description of what Artios is for the people in it. Like it really is an Artios family.
Yeah.
It's awesome because like everyone in there, like we were talking like when we just started of like getting into all these situations that we've never been in before, as we're exploring, and like that's everyone in Artios. So everyone is exploring and learning new things and stuff like that, and that just creates an atmosphere where everyone feels safe to try anything and
Hmm.
have amazing friendships, which is just amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's cool seeing where people grow in, like, and do things that they never thought they would do, like me and, theater. But like just also seeing how they've been able to accomplish things that they've been working towards. It's
Mhm.
just amazing. I love to see that.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
So, if you had to describe Artios to someone, like in an elevator ride, how would you like? Where would you even start? How would you do it?
Well, first I would ask them if they've ever heard of Artios.
Yeah.
Because you'd be surprised. Like there are quite a few people that I've talked to outside of Bob Jones University who know of Artios. But I'd first say that it's it's not just a school; it's a family. And I think that's just like what you're talking about. It's just really cool. And that the I would say that the teachers truly, truly, truly want to grow you and push you into whatever field that you're trying to go into, and they're preparing you to the best of their ability for the future. That it's a place to feel safe. It's a place that you're able to hear the word of God every day. It's a place that you make forever friends, and that you're able to be yourself, at, which is a huge deal, especially nowadays. Just a place where you can learn and teach, and to be both the one being guided and also learn how to be the guide, is just really cool. You're put into a lot of positions of leadership, and that's extremely beneficial. Uh, it's I would also mention, like how it's not like any other high school experience or middle school experience or elementary experience. Like it is a lifetime, um, just something that forever imprints on your life, which is just really cool. Um, but yeah, ding, we're at the next floor. Um, I probably missed something, to be honest. I mean, there's just so much to say about Artios. I'd say that the teachers are your friends. Um, like they become friends, which is just really cool. But that doesn't lessen their authority. And I think that's really neat because, like, oftentimes there's this weird, like, once a teacher becomes a friend, you like, I don't know, like, there's some kind of like loss of I'm just gonna say authority again.
Yeah.
That like their authority, but it's just really cool. Like they're able to be, someone who's in charge of you, but also be beside you,
Mm.
which is just really neat. And that actually kind of reflects God's nature, like being above you and beside you through life. So I think that's really neat.
That is
Yeah.
a that is a good way to describe Artios. It's definitely a place where um, you go and you grow and learn in a family that is all growing and learning to be prepared and equipped for whatever God has planned for
Mm-hmm.
everyone, um,
Yep.
which is awesome. So wonderful.
That's like the definition of artios, isn't it? Or like that Latin word. I
Yes,
know that
yes,
they
a
would
Greek
explain
word.
it. Yeah,
It's
Greek. That's what it
equipped.
is. It's Greek.
It means
Equipped. Yeah.
equipped for every good work is
Mm-hmm.
is what it means, and that I feel like that really is because like looking back at going through college, having now graduated that, and now doing doing grad school at UNC. It's just, there's so many things that from Artios still affect like everything that I do today. And it's not even like, because sometimes I thought, well, you go to high school and then college like replaces high school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like Artios built such a strong foundation that college could build on top of. But it's like that, what I learned that true community feels like, affects what I do today, or learning, my limit is usually a lot higher than I think it is at first, and that affects what I do now. And it's really cool when you think back on it.
Yeah, I think it's also a place where I learned truly for the first time that asking is completely welcome when you're learning. And that like teachers will willingly, like they want you to ask questions. Because I feel like when I think I was like, I've been private school, public schooled, and Archeos. So like, so just having that feeling where they genuinely want you to understand what you're being taught, so that you can apply it. And it's really neat that you're not just learning it to then throw it away for later, cramming for a test, being done with that test, and then woo, moving on. You're being able to fully grasp what kind of everything means, or what the implication or something more that comes out of it means.
Yeah.
And I think that's really beneficial, to just everyday life, is welcoming asking and like to really seek to know more. And Artios did a good job teaching that.
Yeah, that's definitely true of by the time you're done with whatever class, whether it's a arts class or an academic class, you feel like you understand it way more than like the test. And I think that's why there's so much of the classes, connecting with each other, because they just make sure that we all knew what they were teaching, to the extent that we could start making those connections with seemingly disrelated things.
And it was interesting because I remember a few times where the teacher of one class would ask a question that related to something from another class. That happened more than just once. It was almost, weekly. And I think that was just really fascinating, and something that doesn't happen often outside of somewhere where they really want you to grow and apply it. I think application is big in Artios. It's the preparation, it's that equipping, for our future, is being ready. And I think they have a really firm understanding that knowledge is not just a throwaway thing. It's a constant reminder, like, of everyday life. And that is so Artios. It's so very ingrained in what our school did for us.
That's true. So do you have any last thing you'd want to say about your time at Artios, or Artios?
I think it's an absolutely amazing program. It's somewhere where art and education are one and the same. And I think that is so beneficial this day and age, especially since a lot of time art is put second. And as an artist, I'm like, no, it is not. So just having that ability to express your knowledge through your creativity is so big in my mind and my heart. I just, I would thank a lot of the teachers. I would thank my parents, Victor and Pam Kennedy, and just like encourage those who are seeking somewhere to grow in just creativity or education. Artios is a great place. It's somewhere that's a forever place. And I think that's really neat. It will get you to where you need to go. That's for sure. It's called Artios for a reason.
Yeah.
So that Greek word is not false. That Greek word is very much what Artios is. It does equip you.